Hi guys, welcome back to the channel. So I wanted to cover this case, yet involving biological males competing against female athletes and the consequences of that. And there are a number of lawsuits in the media recently. I want to cover this one in particular that is in Connecticut. It involves a woman who says that she was the fastest girl in Connecticut at one point. And sadly, her career has essentially been derailed because she had to compete with biological males over a number of years. And, she's saying that this was from 2017. And she can only look back and wonder where her career would have been, what scholarships she may have been offered had she not had to compete against biological males. So she is among 4 women who are taking the Connecticut Association of Schools and the Connecticut Interscholastic Athletics Conference to court because of what they have potentially lost due to this policy, giving biological males who have an unfair advantage the ability to compete in women's sports. So let's take a look.
4 women are in a New York courtroom today challenging a policy from a school sports organization in Connecticut that allows transgender athletes to compete based on their gender identity rather than their biological sex.
The 4, led by 20-year-old Chelsea Mitchell, are claiming the policy caused her and other girls to lose track races while they were in high school. Fox Live's Ashley Rodriguez joins us live from downtown with those claims. Ashley?
Yeah, so Chelsea says she was one of the fastest girls in all of Connecticut. She says that changed, though, once the state's athletic conference started allowing transgender athletes to compete in high school sports, and she started losing races. She says she lost more than 20 races, and she lost out on numerous prestigious awards. And she says she still has no idea how those losses impacted her ability to get scholarships or be recruited to colleges. That's why she decided to sue the Connecticut Association of Schools and the Connecticut Interscholastic Athletic Conference, she and 3 others. From her freshman to senior year, Chelsea says she had to compete against transgendered athletes and consistently lost, despite breaking records previously. She initially filed a Title IX complaint. The Second Circuit Court of Appeals ruled against that claim back in December, but today the court reheard the case, and Chelsea and the 3 other girls want the court to declare the policy violates Title IX.
We're going to have to demonstrate that Title IX was intended to protect girls in girls' sports. That's a big issue. I think eventually that's going to end up in the U.S. Supreme Court. But ultimately, we feel very confident about that issue because if males are able to identify as females and take away championships, take away places in the finals and everything that you just heard about, then Title IX is really a dead letter. That's not what Congress intended.
The ACLU Foundation of Connecticut, who is defending the state's transgender policy, responded. They wrote, "There is enough room on the victory podium for transgender girls, too. The court's previous decision affirmed that our clients play by the rules and that all girls, trans and cisgender, have a right to play under Title IX. We hope the court will follow the facts and uphold its earlier decision. No matter what, we know that trans children should be loved, affirmed, and respected everywhere, including in our schools and on our sports team." And the Connecticut Interscholastic Athletic Conference also stood by its policy, saying that it is proud of its inclusionary policies. Now, it's not clear why the court decided to rehear this case, but it is a first of its kind. Obviously, this is an issue that has become a part of the national conversation. We are not expecting an opinion to come down for a few months, but of course, we'll keep you updated.
Okay, so they're reconsidering this case. They decided to have another hearing and they're not sure why, but it's a good sign. So Chelsea Mitchell, she said she was the fastest girl in Connecticut at one point, but despite that, she lost 20 times having to compete against these biological males. Mitchell says she was the fastest girl in Connecticut, but after state athletics allowed transgender athletes to compete in girls' track and field in 2017, she lost more than 20 races and several prestigious awards. Mitchell says she will never know how those losses impacted her college recruitment and scholarship opportunities. So imagine being the fastest girl in Connecticut in this event, and it's not good enough because you have to compete against biological males. It's a losing battle. She's competing at her highest level. She's training, she's working hard to push her body to reach her highest level of achievement. And these biological males probably didn't even break a sweat. You can see how unfair this is. And this is what is happening to female athletes all over the country. due to these ridiculous policies. There's a reason why male and female athletes are separated in sports in general. But for some reason, when it comes to schools, when it comes to their inclusion and diversity and all of that, that all goes out of the window. And we're supposed to pretend that there's no differences between male and female athletes. If there was no difference, there wouldn't be men and women categories in the Olympics across the board. Throughout people's athletics careers, they've never had to cross over into the sexes. But for some reason, when it comes to schools, that goes out the window when they want a virtual signal and say how proud they are of their diversity, of their inclusion policy, including biological males, but disenfranchising the females, disenfranchising the girls. Not only that, they have to change in the locker rooms with these biological males. They have to change in the locker rooms with them. Being violated in every area, left unprotected, policies that allow men to come into the locker room, essentially. If biological males are allowed to change in the locker room, that means that men are allowed to come into the locker room.
A 6'4" male walks in, disrobes, and is fully intact with male genitalia while we're simultaneously undressing as 18 to 22-year-old girls, and we could do nothing about it. I actually immediately left the locker room, and I went up to one of the officials on the pool deck, and I said, how is this allowed to happen? I understand the guidelines for the competition, but what are the guidelines in regards to the locker room? And he looks at me and word for word says, oh, we actually got around this by making the locker rooms unisex, so it's not a big deal. And I thought about that, and unisex. So this meant that any man could have walked into our locker room, not just a self-identifying female. Any man, any coach, any parent, any official, any man who wanted to would have had full access to, and bare minimum, we weren't forewarned. And actually, Leah Thomas's teammates who dealt with this every single day all year, when they expressed their discomfort to their administration and they sent an email, and I swear I have a screenshot of their response, their administration responded back with, if you feel uncomfortable seeing male genitalia, here's some counseling resources that you should seek. And that's the general consensus of what's happening around the country, which is why I felt it necessary to get in front of colleges and speak. I think it's so important to engage people my age, 22 years old, to understand what's happening, because that's not what you're hearing in the media.
These girls are left vulnerable, and they're told that they have to accept that. They're told that they have to like it even, or they're bigoted. You saw how dejected those female athletes looked at the end of that race in that video there. Because what more could they do? They can't change their bodies and be able to compete against men fairly. No, all they can do is train hard and push themselves to reach the highest levels. And that's exactly what they did, but it still wasn't good enough. Because unsuspectingly, biological males were allowed to compete against them because of this ridiculous politics, the lunacy that's going on with these athletics boards, with these schools. They're putting the trans athletes first above the female athletes. They're putting their desires, their wants above the rights of these girls, above the purpose of Title IX. I really hope they're successful with this court case. And let's look at their ridiculous statement. So we had the athletics, the scholastic conference say they were proud of their diversity. And then this ACLU, Foundation of Connecticut, who was defending the state's transgender policy, responded saying, there was enough room on the victory podium for transgender girls too. Absolutely false. There's only 3 places on the podium. Most podiums is first, second, and third. There's not enough room for transgender athletes. What happens is they have an unfair advantage. They come first, they come second. The result of that is to push female athletes further back. The result of that is stopping female athletes breaking records. Their records have been ruined now and unlikely to be broken again by another female. So there's only one first place, there's only one second, there's only one third. A lot of these qualifying events, you need to be in the first 3 or the first 4 to qualify. Let's just have that as a general rule. So that means whoever came 4th or 5th misses out on qualifying because the first 3 places or the first place, the second place was taken by a male. So these young women have to deal with the fact that they have been prevented from qualifying for certain events. Not only that, it's literally taking money out of their pockets because they're missing out on scholarship opportunities. These scholarships don't go to mediocre athletes. They don't. They go to people at the highest level. So if you're not coming first, if you're not coming second, at least third, then you're unlikely to get the best offers. If you're not winning these events, you're the fastest girl in Connecticut, but you don't win. Does that make any sense? That in itself should show you that this is unfair. You are the fastest girl in Connecticut, but you do not win those events. You do not come first. How does that even make sense? Because the person who came first was a trans athlete, a biological male who identified as a female athlete. And if you think this is not going to attract people who basically want to cheat, mediocre athletes who can just switch over and now be number one, then you're fooling yourselves. This is a hustle. The court's previous decision affirmed that our clients played by the rules and that all girls, trans and cisgender, have a right to play under Title IX. And again, nobody is preventing trans-identifying athletes from competing. But what's fair is they compete in the biological sex that they are. We don't throw biology out of the window and claim that that doesn't matter anymore because we want to play politics, because we want a virtual signal. And there's no cisgender. These are girls. And this rule allowed biological males to infiltrate and come in and dominate. We hope the court will follow the facts and uphold its earlier decision. The fact is, biology doesn't change. That's the fact. No matter what, we know that trans children should be loved, affirmed, and respected everywhere, including in our schools and on our sports teams. First of all, nobody is saying that all children do not deserve love. All children deserve love, absolutely. But it's not about that. It's about what is right and what is wrong. And this idea of affirming somebody is saying that in order to affirm somebody, in their identity, the rights of everybody else doesn't matter. The rights of the women don't matter. The rights of the young girls competing in sports doesn't matter. All in the pursuit of affirming. So I really hope the court reconsiders and makes sure that the rights of these young women are protected. They can only wonder where their career would have been if they didn't have to compete against males. They can only wonder what opportunities they would have been offered, what scholarships they would have been offered, had they not had to compete against biological males. They can only wonder what records they would have broken, where their careers would have been today, had they not had to compete against boys for years. Their career could have been in a completely different place today, as they are in their early 20s now. And they will never know. They will never know. So I hope the court acknowledges that and somehow, compensates them accordingly. Although no amount of money can make up for it, at least it's a start. And don't tell me there's no difference between men and women. Did you not hear about the US women's soccer team competing against older men and they lost 12-0? They couldn't even score one goal.
This message is for Ryan Reynolds and Rob McElhenney. 1, you should be here right now with your squad. 2, your team about to go down in North Carolina. Let's go! USA! USA!
Competing against retired older men, they were unable to score one goal and they were humiliated and lost 12-0. So if that doesn't tell you that there are clearly differences between the sexes and that men have an advantage over women when it comes to sports because they are built differently, and that doesn't change because of synthetic hormones. There's no evidence that taking synthetic hormones, or no proof that taking synthetic hormones is going to change those biological differences: bone density, muscle mass, speed, agility, strength. And in many cases, taking hormones isn't even required. You just have to identify. You're allowed in the locker room, you're allowed to compete, you're allowed to steal spots from biological females. You're allowed to steal their spot, steal their place, just because you identify as being the same. When the reality is, the facts are, as they said, they want the courts to look at the facts. Well, the fact is, men and women are not the same. And you don't become female just because you identify as a girl. or identify as a woman. You do not become female and have the same characteristics and physicalities of a female. That can never happen. That's fact. So let me know what you think. Thanks for watching. Take care of yourselves, and God willing, I will see you in the next video.